Think about the last three significant people in your life. A partner, a close friend, a person who hurt you. Now look at the pattern. Different names, different faces, different cities maybe. But somehow, the same dynamic. The same arguments, the same feelings, the same eventual ending. You didn't have bad luck. You had an unconscious script, and you've been casting the same role over and over without realizing the auditions were never random. Carl Jung saw this pattern a century ago. He called it projection, and understanding it might be the most important psychological work you ever do.
Jung believed the human psyche is not one unified thing. It is a collection of parts, some conscious, some not. And the parts you haven't examined, the parts you've buried, repressed, or never fully understood, those parts don't disappear. They go underground. And from underground, they run your life. Specifically, they run your relationships. Jung identified what he called the anima and animus, the unconscious feminine image carried in the male psyche, and the unconscious masculine image carried in the female psyche. These aren't just abstract archetypes. They are the psychological blueprints your unconscious uses to recognize and pursue romantic partners. And here's the critical insight. Those blueprints weren't written by you. They were written by your earliest experiences of the opposite energy. Your parents, your caregivers, the first relationships your nervous system used to understand what closeness feels like. If closeness felt like chaos, your blueprint includes chaos as a feature, not a bug. If love felt like distance, your blueprint reads emotional unavailability as familiar, and familiarity as safety. You don't choose partners with your conscious mind nearly as much as you believe you do. You choose them with a template so old, you've forgotten it exists.
Jung's concept of projection is one of the most practically useful ideas in all of psychology, and one of the most consistently misunderstood. Most people think projection means accusing others of what you're doing yourself. That's a surface reading. At its deepest level, projection means this: the qualities you cannot see in yourself, you will see with extraordinary clarity and intensity in other people. The parts of your psyche that live in what Jung called the shadow, the rejected, unacknowledged, unexplored dimensions of who you are, get externalized. They get placed onto other people. And then you react to those people with an emotional charge that is completely disproportionate to what actually happened. You felt this. The person who irritates you beyond reason, whose specific behavior triggers something in you that you can't fully explain. The partner whose flaw you couldn't stop focusing on, couldn't stop trying to fix. Jung said, look there, because the intensity of your reaction is a map. It's pointing not at them, but it's something in you that hasn't been integrated yet. Modern attachment research supports this with striking precision. Studies on attachment styles consistently show that anxiously attached individuals disproportionately attract and are attracted to avoidantly attached partners, not by accident, but because the dynamic replicates the original attachment wound with enough familiarity.
Here's the part that is genuinely uncomfortable. Your nervous system cannot always distinguish between what is good for you and what is familiar to you. Neuroscientists call this affective forecasting error, the brain's tendency to predict that familiar emotional states will feel better than unfamiliar ones, even when the familiar states are objectively painful. In plain language, if you grew up in an environment where love was inconsistent, you will unconsciously seek inconsistency, because consistency to your nervous system doesn't feel like love. It feels boring. It feels like something is missing. The person who treats you well from the beginning, who is stable, present, reliable, registers as flat, no charge, no electricity. The person who is hot and cold, who makes you work for their attention, who creates the specific flavor of anxiety your childhood taught you to associate with caring deeply about someone, that person feels alive, feels like the real thing. This is not weakness. This is neurology. Your brain is running a pattern recognition program so old it predates your ability to question it. Jung's answer to this was not to simply choose differently. It was to go deeper, to illuminate the blueprint itself, so that you can see it operating in real time rather than only in hindsight. Because you cannot change what you cannot see.
Jung called the process of becoming a fully conscious, integrated human being individuation, the lifelong journey of meeting every part of yourself, including the parts you'd rather not acknowledge. And he was clear. It is the only real exit from the pattern. Not a new relationship, not a new city, not a new strategy for picking partners. The exit is inward. Specifically, it requires what Jung called shadow integration, the deliberate, honest examination of the parts of yourself you've rejected, hidden, or projected onto others. This is not comfortable work. The shadow contains not just your darkness, your envy, your rage, your capacity for manipulation, but also your unlived potential, the ambitions you dismissed as unrealistic, the needs you decided were too much to ask for, the person you were before the world told you who to be. When those parts stay in the dark, they run the relationship choices your conscious mind believes it's making freely. When you bring them into the light, the charge diminishes, the projection.
So what does this actually look like in practice? It starts with one question, asked honestly, asked repeatedly, asked especially when the emotional charge is highest. What is this person showing me about myself? Not what is wrong with them. Not why do they keep doing this? Not how do I fix this dynamic? What is this activating in me? And where did that activation begin? The answer won't always come immediately, but the question itself is the beginning of consciousness. And consciousness, in Jungian psychology, is the only thing that can interrupt an unconscious pattern. You will keep attracting the same person, in different bodies, with different names, in different contexts, for as long as the blueprint runs unexamined. The moment you examine it, really examine it, with the kind of honesty that costs something, the pattern doesn't just weaken, it loses its grip entirely. Drop a comment. I'm done running the same script. Subscribe, because next we go even deeper into the psychology of who you actually are beneath the patterns you were handed.